Hey everyone, welcome. Over the next few videos, I'm going to mix an entire indie rock song from top to bottom, and I'll separate it out into multiple parts so it's easier to follow along with and understand what I'm doing at certain sections. This first video is going to be part one, and it's going to cover all the important session setup, phase, gain staging, and then setting basic levels and panning, and that's going to set us up for success through the rest of the mix. Part two is going to cover all the drums and percussion, part three is going to handle instruments and vocals, and then part four is going to be automation and all the finishing touches. This video is going to be perfect for anyone who uses Logic or anyone who wants to learn more about mixing in general. I'm going to be mixing the song in Logic Pro, and while I might use some stock plugins, the majority of what I use will be the regular third-party plugins I use when mixing. Since I know a lot of people don't have all the stock plugins that I do, I'll suggest some alternatives or maybe stock Logic options that you can use along the way. With all that said, please make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so YouTube will let you know when the following videos in this series come out. So I've got the song pulled up here. This is a 6-piece indie band out of Orlando, Florida, and they're called Jen and the Right Light. I recorded and produced and mixed this about, I want to say, 6 or 7 years ago. So this was one of the earlier bands that I worked with when I was getting into recording and producing. And so there's a lot of things in this recording that I would have done better. And there's a lot of things in the original mix that I think I can improve on. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to tackle this, is to see if I can beat my mix from 6 or 7 years ago. We recorded all of this live, like all 6 people in a room playing the instruments at the same time. So drums, percussion, bass, 2 guitars, keys, all live. And then we came back and did some overdubs, and we recorded the vocals later because we didn't want any bleed in the vocals. I'll go ahead and play a bit of the raw unmixed song, and then I'll show you the final mix that I did 7-something years ago, and then we'll get started. I'm going to ride this mix bus a little bit because it's all over the place with levels.
Driving with you, what a small town. You were shaking so loudly, I held you tightly. It's the moment of truth, we'll meet at the lake. I wish it.
All right, there's the raw files. Here's the final mix that I came up with.
Upstate driving with you, what a small town. You were shaking so loudly, I held you tightly. It's the moment of truth, we'll meet at the lake.
Okay, that gives you an idea. Definitely the final mix made it huge. So what we're working with as far as tracks, we have... Here's the drums. We have kick in and out, snare top and bottom, rack tom, floor tom, and overhead. And the interesting challenge with this mix is that the drums and percussion especially, they were on either side of kind of the main part of the live room, and I put the room mics in between both of them. So there's some sort of shared information within all these drums and percussion mics. So here's just the drums. So you can already hear the percussion in there. Some congas. Here is the room mic, the mono room mic in the center. It was in Omni. So it adds a lot more percussion, and then some stereo room mics. And then the percussion mics, also stereo. You also have some guitar bleed in there with it. Here's the bass. This was just DI. So luckily no bleed there. We have, this is the main rhythm guitar here. We We have another rhythm guitar that was done after, like an overdub, kind of just a rhythm double. And then we have the lead guitar here. We have organ. And then we have vocals.
So far apart, struggle stay close.
So the nice thing about this song is there is only one vocal, so we don't have to deal with stacks and stacks of vocals. The main challenge is just going to be managing all of the bleed between all the instruments. So the first thing I do is I start to color stuff. So all of my drums, I'll go ahead and option C, get some color going. Drums are always red, maybe because they sound aggressive. Percussion, I'll do similar to the red, but kind of a different color, maybe a pink. Bass is always purple because of Rock Band. And then see some rhythm guitars, we'll do one color. Lead guitars will do a similar color. Organ can be like a green. Vocals can be like a gold. So I always just jump straight to coloring because that just helps everything work better, in my opinion. Also, if your audio files are like a weird name, just highlight them all and go to name and color, and you can name regions by tracks. So now they match your tracks. It just helps clean things up even more. The next thing I do before I even touch faders is I go through and gain stage all of my audio files. And what this means is manually adjusting the audio file so that it's hitting not too loud or not too soft. And the sweet spot I like to mix to or set this to is -12. And what this does is helps your whole mix from getting too loud right off the bat. Because if your files are coming in at like -6 or -3, they're going to be really loud. And it's just going to get louder and louder, and you're going to have trouble dealing with that. So I'll go somewhere to the song where it's loudest. So right here looks pretty loud. And I'm going to check each track. And if when the fader's at unity, when the fader's at 0, the level needs to be hitting at this 12 right here. It's pretty small, but that is where I like my gain to go. And so if you don't have a gain number that you like, I'd recommend -12. It's a good sweet spot. I've heard people do -18 to -12. Some people do -12 to -6. I just aim for -12. So it's pretty good. It's okay if it goes a little above, so that's fine. It's averaging -12 though. Kick in. That's pretty loud. That's hitting around -6. So I'm going to highlight it and go over here to the info panel and just go ahead and hit -5. And that's going to pull that down. That was a little too much. Let's do -3. That's pretty good. Snare top. That's really loud. Let's pull like 6 out of that. Great, snare bottom. I'll pull like 3 out of that. So you just run it down all of them, and I won't necessarily make you watch all this, but it's good to have an idea kind of what gain staging means, because I feel like people get freaked out by that. And vocals especially, it might be worthwhile to go through and kind of cut them up and gain stage the parts separately. So like all of this right here is really quiet.
Upstate driving with you, what a small town.
So I might grab like all of this.
So far apart, struggles. I think you might see what.
So like these here, I'll keep them at 0.
Upstate driving with you, what a small town.
These.
So far apart, struggles stay close.
These can come up like 2. Maybe, so we'll put them at -1.
I think you might see what making love.
And then he gets louder there.
You've been sitting around.
That's good.
Understand.
That's good.
You've been sitting around.
Great. So what we're going to do by the end of this video is have all of our basic levels and panning set so we have a good overall balance. But what I do first is address any drum phase that there might be. If you're not familiar with drum phase, I've done some more in-depth videos on that, but I'll go ahead and run through it and explain it again today. because it's a little different every time you do it. So my favorite way to deal with drum phasing is to use waves in phase. I still keep it pretty simple though. So I'll start by playing, let me find a good spot. This is good here. This is a good section because we have all the things. So first I start with the snare to overhead. So what in phase lets you do, basically the two things that I use are this phase flip right here, which will completely 180 the phase, and then a delay, which lets you, kind of nudge the audio file back or forward a little bit. So what I do to start is flip the phase, and I actually find the most out of phase sound I can. So I'll flip the phase until it sounds worse, and then I'll move the delay. I'll delay the source a little bit until it sounds really thin. Because to my ear, it's easier to thin it out all the way and then flip the phase back than to just move stuff around and try to make it sound better. So that's thinner right there. I'm going to start to delay this and we'll see if we can get it even thinner. So that almost sounds like we can't hear it at all, which is perfect. And then we flip it back. And then I'll continue to nudge it just a little bit to make sure there's nothing else. It's actually a good amount of body right there. So then I'll copy this in phase over and check it on the snare bottom. That's worse. That's really thin right there. I'm going to check the snare to the room real quick. Okay, that's not making much of a difference. I'm going to go to the kick now. I like that better. I'll go to the kick in, compare it to the kick out. What I'm doing is almost like a round robin, like I'm going around to different things and just making sure that they all are in phase as good as they can be. If you think of the relationship between a kick in and a kick out, the kick in is a little closer to the source, so the sound is getting there first. So I always try to delay the kick in and bring it back to where the kick out is at. That's pretty thin right there, so then I'll flip it back. That's good right there. Great, I'll check the toms to the overhead now. that's good right there. I'll go to the floor tom, do the same thing. I think it's slightly thicker right there. Okay, I'm gonna roll with that. I'll check those to the room. Not really any change. So I think it's safe to say we've got our phase locked in. I'll check this room stereo to the room center, and I'm going to use the stereo version of this. I'm liking that a little bit better. I'm also going to go ahead and check the percussion because this is all one instrument. Even though it's different instruments, they're all in the same room. We got to treat them together. All of this is super subtle. I'm going to leave it with the phase flip there just because I think it sounds a little better. Sometimes it's really easy to hear phase differences, but there's so much going on here that it's challenging for me. So I'm going to leave it there. And next, we're going to do all the levels. So the way I like to do this is go ahead and just find the loudest part of your song, probably over here. So this is kind of the ending. Everybody's all in. And what I'm going to do is pull all the faders down. One thing I didn't mention when we started, I have all my band, basically all the tracks in here except the reference, going to this mix bus here. That way the reference track can go directly to the stereo out. This just separates things a little bit. So when I do any of my mix bus processing later, it's going to go on this mix bus and not affect how we hear the reference. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this mix bus all the way back up. I had it down because the track was so loud. And I'm going to pull all the faders down. The way I like to approach this is basically bring up from lowest instrument to highest instrument one at a time. And I don't want my stereo out, my mix bus, whatever, to exceed -6. So we're trying to build in headroom from the start. And this is going to just give us space, and we're not going to be doing this constant like fighting the clipping thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play and just start to bring stuff up. I'll come back to toms. while I'm at this, I also start to pan things and just get kind of an overall feel of like, this feels good. Like I'm trying to just balance everything, get it all spread out, and it's going to make life so much easier for the rest of the mix.
You've been sitting around. I've been thinking about. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming around.
So I want the rhythm guitars pretty wide, and then I have this lead in a little bit more.
You've been sitting around. I've been thinking about. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming around. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming around. Give me a reason to stay.
Okay, so this is a good static mix so far, and this is not going to work for the entire song, but the idea is just to give us kind of a starting point and a better listening experience while we're working on the rest of all the things, the rest of the mix. So I'll check it one more time. I need to pan the tom still. The idea is just we want to be able to hear everything clearly and have a nice sense of clarity and definition before we reach for any sort of processing. So I'll check it one more time.
You've been sitting around. I've been thinking about. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming around. Give me a reason, baby. You've been sitting around. I've been thinking about. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming around. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming.
I remember from the first time mixing this, part of the challenge was getting the close mics of the drums to sound kind of in your face because of how much room, content, and bleed there was. So that's definitely something we're going to address in probably part 2 when we're working on the drums.
You've been sitting around. I've been thinking about. Give me a reason, baby, and I'll be coming around. Give me a reason, and I'll be coming around. Give me a reason to stay. Give me a reason to stay. You've been sitting around. I've been thinking about. Give me a reason, baby.
Great. So that's going to give us an excellent starting point as we move forward with the rest of the song. The only other things you could do at this point in the mix is set up kind of your bus routing and that kind of thing, but I'm going to do it as I go in the other parts. That wraps up part 1 of my 4-part mixing series where I mix this entire indie song from top to bottom. If you enjoyed that so far, let me know down in the comments, or if you have any other questions, you can ask them down there too. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you're notified when the next one comes out. If you're watching this when it was released, then the next one will be out a week from today, so next Friday. If this video has been out for more than a week, then part 2 will already be out. Part 2 is going to cover all of the drum and percussion processing, so if you want to learn more about that, definitely check out the next video. Thanks so much for watching.